Cognitive load.
Let's talk about cognitive load in UX design while making a bunch of Christmas things. So today you saw me make this Christmas candy cane, this wreath, and finally this Santa hat. The very first thing we made was this stick, which was actually quite simple to do. Just wrap two of these around each other and then have it twist at the very top. And this was the simplest thing we made today. The next thing I made was this wreath, which was also quite similar, just wrapping the two of these around each other, adding these tiny little decorations and adding a tiny little bow at the bottom. And the last thing that we made here was actually the Santa hat, and it was quite complicated because we had to figure out the distance for the head, have that distance run both ways, then figure out a shape, put it at the top, then figure out this tiny little ornament to go on the top of the hat. As we made each decoration, things got more difficult for us. This was the easiest thing to do, and it required the minimum number of steps. This was a little bit of a medium complexity kind of thing to do. It required a couple of steps, but also they were simple steps on their own. And this was a bit of a calculative, complicated thing to do. And each decoration required more effort for my brain. That's exactly what cognitive load is. Cognitive load states that the more complicated a task, the more mental effort we need to make it work. And it applies to UX design because when we're doing things, we really have to think about not overwhelming the users with too many twists at once. And it leads me to a very interesting conclusion. Cognitive load is a simple concept that states the more complex the task is, the more mental effort we need to complete it. But as a UX designer, what you can learn from this is sometimes user experience is all about changing the cognitive load at the moment for the user. If you need the user to do a certain task, you have to be the person who decides what amount of cognitive load I'm going to give the user and when, whether this load is actually even helpful for completing my tasks. Does it make sense to have the user go through this complexity? Can we have things like autofills? Can we have things like browser cache, saving things, or just simplifying a step that seemed complicated at first? You need to be the person who decides this, simply because not all high cognitive load leads to the best looking results. So this took the least amount of cognitive load for me to make. This was a medium cognitive load kind of task, and this was a high cognitive load kind of task. And yet when I think about it personally, this looks far better than this. This required me to have a little bit more cognitive load, and it still came out looking kind of icky. It kind of still looks very empty. Meanwhile, if you just put this right here, it seems very nice, it seems very complete, it has a lot of color, and it just gives you a really wholesome finish. This is not just a balloon ornament in this case. Sometimes you'll realize the easiest things to make isn't always the prettiest looking, and the hardest cognitive load kind of thing isn't the best one either. Sometimes the best user experiences come from having medium cognitive load and the most wholesome looking product gets made. This has been cognitive load in UX design. I hope you liked this one. Merry Christmas. Absolutely every one of you. Make sure to follow along for more. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to like this video, and I'll see you in the next one.